What is up, you guys? It is Jazz, and on my channel I talk about nursing, hair, and holistic health and wellness. If this is your first time clicking on one of my videos, thank you so much for coming to hang out with me today. And if you are returning, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. You already know what this video is about to be about. I'm not really going to waste much time. All I'm going to say is I do kind of have an NCLEX series going. My first NCLEX video I posted was my personal NCLEX experience and how I went from failing at 145 questions the first time to passing at 76 questions the second time. And then my second NCLEX video is basically just like an NCLEX 101 video telling you all about where you can find the test plan information, resources, registering for your exam, etc. This is my third NCLEX video, which is just gonna be a list of a bunch of tips that I came up with, and I am also planning on filming a video all about the next generation NCLEX, which will be released April 2023. So for some of you in nursing school, that will be the version of the NCLEX you're taking. So definitely be on the lookout for that video soon as well. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into this video of NCLEX tips. These tips are kind of gonna go in order of the process that you would actually use them. So my first tip is when you're going to schedule your NCLEX exam, make sure you think wisely about what time of day is best for you to take your test. The test times start, I believe, at 8 a.m. and go until like afternoon times. So just think, am I more a morning person? Do I want to just get up, go right to my test? Or do I want to get up and have some time before my test during the day to kind of like, I don't know, mentally prepare? Whatever you think is going to be best for you. First time I took my test, I thought an afternoon time would be better. It was at 1:30, and all that did was give me all day to stress. So the second time I took my exam right at 8 a.m. and that I think worked a lot better for me. Tip number 2, once you're registered for your exam, you're going to want to go ahead and make a very realistic study plan. You're going to want to ask yourself, how many weeks or months do I want to spend studying for my exam? How many days a week do I plan on studying for my exam? How many hours a day do I want to study for my exam? What time of day am I going to be studying for my exam? And what resources am I going to use to study for my exam? Now, the reason I say this, make a realistic study plan, is because everybody has different circumstances. You might have children, you might be working full time, you might have a totally open schedule where you can study for 12 hours a day. So it really varies. So you need to think about how much time out you need to give yourself so that you can get the amount of studying done that you want to. Tip number 3, you're going to want to decide for your study plan, do you want it to be very structured or kind of more fluid? What do I mean by this? By structured, I mean you know down to the day what questions you're going to answer and or what pages of whatever resource you're using that you're going to cover or go over that day. For more fluid, this could look like just creating a to-do list of everything you want to get done, and you don't really plan on what day you're going to do it. You just kind of go along and cross things off as you go. I did both of these. The first time I thought a very structured study plan would work better for me. It did not. I fell behind and then I got discouraged. Second time around, I just made a to-do list, hung it on my fridge, and crossed things off as I went. That way I could still see everything I needed to do, but I didn't feel discouraged if I didn't finish exactly what I wanted to do each day. Tip number 4, give yourself some wiggle room with your study plan. Don't plan your studying to be finished like the day before your test. I would say at least give yourself about a week of wiggle room that you plan to be done studying before your test. That way, you know, if days come up where you can't get as much done, you don't feel anxious or rushed to try to get your studying done, because you know you have like that little week of buffer time to help you out. Tip number 5, referring back to thinking about what resources you want to use, don't use too many resources when you're studying for your exam. You can definitely get information and resource overload. I would say try to choose 1 to 2, maybe 3 resources that you are just going to stick to and really use those to their full extent, so that you aren't just all over the place overthinking because you have 7 different resources that you're trying to use to study for this exam. Tip number 6, I would say At least one of those resources needs to be some type of form of doing practice questions, okay? Practice questions, practice questions, practice questions. In my opinion, the best way to prepare for a test is to answer a bunch of questions in the same type of format that the test you're going to be taking is written in, okay? So personally, I used UWorld. I haven't used any other practice question study resources, so I can't speak for any of the other ones. You'll have to just do your research to figure out which resource you think would be best for you. I stand behind UWorld. UWorld is pretty much the only resource I use when studying for my NCLEX. I worked through almost the whole question bank except for about 75 questions, and I passed my test at 76 questions just by using UWorld and reading those rationales. And just a little second point under this tip, make sure that when you're doing practice questions, you're doing select all that apply. I know nobody likes select all that apply, but guess what? The NCLEX is gonna ask you select all that apply. And in fact, the more you're getting asked select all that apply questions, that's an indicator that the better you are doing. So you wanna be getting those questions. So you need to be practicing those select all that apply questions so that when you get to those hard level questions on the NCLEX, you can get those right just like you're getting the single response questions right. Tip number 7, don't try to speed through your practice questions just to hit a certain number of questions that you answered. You really want to, in this case, go for quality and not quantity. You want to make sure that you are understanding the rationales. And might I also add, make sure that whatever resource you're using for your practice questions offers rationale so that you understand why the answer is right and wrong. Tip number 8, read questions carefully, because in a lot of instances, a difference of one word in the question can totally change what the question is asking you. And more so, it can actually change it to be asking you the total opposite. So just make sure you're just taking your time to read the question and read every word carefully so that you are certain you know what the question is actually asking you. Tip number 9, I would say study your weak areas first so that way you can circle back and study those again closer to your test. And if need be, when you're studying your weaker areas first, go ahead and take some notes on the stuff that you really need to solidify, things you feel like you need to really revisit again, so that way you have a good resource written in your own words of all the stuff that is your weakest areas that you really need to hit hard again, easily accessible to you. Tip number 10, just memorize your lab values. It is very frustrating, and it might be nothing worse than getting a question wrong because you just don't know like what the lab value range is supposed to be, and so you have no idea like, is this too high or too low of a lab value. So just memorize your lab values. Now we're starting to get into like the day before the test and day of the test. So for tip number 11, I would say do not plan to do heavy studying the day before your test. Honestly, probably a couple days before your test. Give your brain a little bit of a break. You've been studying hard this whole time. Do not study hard at least for the whole full day before your test. Maybe just, review lightly over your lab values or little last things you want to make sure you have set in stone. But give yourself a little bit of breather time to just rest and recuperate before your test. And this is just kind of a basic tip that people will say for everything, but make sure you get a good night's rest and make sure you eat well before your test. And no, I don't mean pick up a sausage McGriddle and a hash brown on the way to your test. Eat some fruit and vegetables, eat some complex carbs that's gonna give you energy and brain power for your test. Tip number 12, get there early. Leave extra time to get there. You don't wanna be stressed about possibly being late and missing your NCLEX appointment. Just give yourself extra time. I would even suggest before the day of your test, if it's possible for you, actually drive to your test site and figure out even down to where the entrance door is, so you know exactly where you're going that day and you're not worried about getting lost or not knowing where to go, any of that. Number 13, don't forget your ID. Number 14, this is more of a mind state tip. This is a tip that I think my review course instructor told me. I don't know who told me, but I'm gonna tell you. When you walk into your NCLEX expecting to take all 145 questions. Just because if you're expecting only to take 75 questions, then as soon as you hit 76 questions, your mental state is just going to be bump down a little bit. And then if you hit 77, bump down, bump down, bump down. And then every single question you answer past 75, you might just start getting frustrated or worried or anxious or less confident in yourself, when in reality you could be doing amazing and your test might shut off within the next few questions. So just put it in your mind that you're going to be taking all 145 questions. That way, if you have even one less question than that, then you had one less question than you expected. And if your test does shut off at 75, then you had a ton less questions than you expected, okay? So, like I said, just be mentally prepared to sit there and take 145 questions in case you do have to. That way your mental state is already set and prepared for that, and you're not trying to fight your mental state to stay positive if you get past the 75 mark. Number 15, go ahead and take breaks if you need it. Breaks are allowed. You can get up and you can leave the testing room. You can go get a drink of water. You can go to the bathroom, stretch, take a deep breath, whatever you need to do to kind of just recenter yourself. Take breaks. It is a long test. Even if you're only taking the minimum number of 75 questions is still a fairly long test. So take those breaks if you need it. Tip number 16, I would say take your time, but don't take too much time, right? The time limit for the NCLEX is 5 hours, and the max amount of questions you could get is 145 questions. So 5 hours times 60 minutes is 300 minutes total allowed for the test, divided by 145 questions. That's a little bit more than 2 minutes per question if you end up answering all 145 questions. So if you're sitting on a question and it feels like it's been more than a couple minutes, just try and choose the answer that you think is best and move on. And tip number 17, this one might be the most important. Be confident and believe in yourself from the very beginning, from the day you're scheduling your exam, even before that, from the day you're graduating from school, from the time you're still in school. Be confident and believe in yourself that you can and you will pass this test and you will get your license and become a registered nurse. All right, y'all, so that is my list of 17 tips that I would give to you for the NCLEX. I hope that at least one of these tips was helpful for you. Ideally, all of them were helpful for you. I just want to wish everybody who has to take their NCLEX good luck, but you don't need luck because you've prepared, you have the knowledge, and it's not luck, okay? It's dedication and hard work. But I'm gonna still just say, good luck to you all. I hope the very, very best for you, and I really cannot wait for you to accomplish this goal and move on to the next step of your life and keep accomplishing more goals and achieving all your dreams. If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. If you have any other tips you would suggest for people that I forgot, go ahead and leave that down below. Or if you have any questions, go ahead and leave that down below as well. I will try to find an answer for you. Definitely make sure to subscribe because I have a lot more nursing content coming your way, as well as at least one more NCLEX video. So stay tuned for that. Lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into this video with me today. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, guys.